Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Dateable, a show all about modern dating. Our primary goal on the show is to get to the bottom of why people do the things they do and why people say the things that they say, including yourself. I've got my lovely co-host with me, Julie. How are you?
Oh, hey. This episode's all about communication, which is the core of it, right? The crux of everything with why people do and say the things that they do. Oftentimes you don't know until you ask. That has been a hard lesson to learn.
I cannot count how many people I know as adults who are actually good at communicating. I really can't. On my 10 fingers right now. Yeah,
one and
two.
Obviously.
Ish. I'm still getting there, but my parents, definitely not great
Nope.
communicators.
I think the two of us have made huge strides because I do think communication is you have to really put a lot of work into it, and it's
True.
not going to just happen overnight. I think I was really bad at communication for a long time, and I think a lot of people like me think because we're extroverted and we talk all the time, we're good at communication. But that is not always
Not
the
the
case.
case.
Just because you're good at talking doesn't mean that you're good at communicating. And I'm always at awe, like, why don't we learn this growing up as a skill? Like, we learn about communication, like, in terms of, like, advertising
Media,
and
yeah.
persuasion, but not communicating with, like each other. Like, why?
Yeah, I kind of think back to when I was in third grade and I had a fight with my best friend, Sook Young, that was her name. And nobody could help me figure it out, like how to get in her good graces, how to become friends with her again. My teachers couldn't figure it out. I just cried every day. She would ignore me, and I don't even remember why we were fighting in the first place. But I wish, instead of learning all the other shit that we learned in third grade, which I don't remember what we were learning, I wish someone
Right.
sat me down and was like, this is how you talk to your best friend when you have a conflict.
I think I was just so conflict avoidant for so many years because I equated conflict to ending something. Like if we
Yeah.
had conflict, everything was going to end. It actually took me, I think Alexandra Sullivan, Dr. Alexandra Sullivan, we had her, what was it, season 7? Like Marriage 101, we had her
Yeah.
on. And I remember her saying something that has stuck with me is like conflict is inevitable in a relationship because you're thinking one way and someone else is thinking a different way. You're not going to think the exact same way. Therefore, conflict is going to happen. And it doesn't need to be a fight. It doesn't need to be drama. It could be a conversation. And I think for me, that was like something that was just like, it was a definite aha moment because I think growing up, I didn't see that type of communication.
And conflict is just a terrible word. It just sounds a little bit aggressive. If we said challenge, it might be a different way of looking at
Yep.
it. Evolving your relationship may be a way to look at it. I have the same thought as you, Julie. I feel like conflict means fight and fight means end of something. And I don't want to rock the boat. I wish just things would just stay the way they are, and I don't need to address my needs, and I don't need to address my partner's needs. But everything eventually explodes. That's a universal
Yes.
truth. If you don't communicate your needs, if you don't communicate in general, someone explodes and it never ends well.
I think the best compliment I've ever gotten to date, though, was that with my ex, like that I've mentioned on this podcast, like when we first dated, I was definitely conflict avoidant. Like I didn't want to say anything to rock the boat. I made his needs were more important than my needs. And then when we revisited this relationship over the pandemic, I mean, this is like, what, 5 years of dateable later, he's like, oh my God, you're like a totally different person. But like,
Yeah.
in a good way. Like he like was like, I like that you're just being so much more direct and
Yeah.
not like hiding it. And I think that has given me permission now in my new relationship too to just be very proactive with communication and not be afraid that it's gonna like ruin things, you know? Because at the end of the day, you need to be able to, like, I think communication to me is like one of the top needs I have in a relationship. And if I can't communicate with someone, I need to know that.
And I got to give major props to Julie, because Julie has been the one who has helped me become more direct in my communication too. Julie in recent years has before we start recording, she's multiple times she's been like, Yue, there's something I just want to get off my chest. Let's just talk about it, address it now. And in the beginning, admittedly, it was scary because I'm like, oh, this is a confrontation. What did I do wrong? Are we having a fight? But the way Julie communicates is very direct. Here's what I saw. This is what happened. And this is how it made me feel. Can we talk about why this is making me feel this way? And I've really appreciated that kind of direct communication because I'm glad it takes me out of my comfort zone, that it makes me uncomfortable. It should make me uncomfortable because it's forcing me to change and forcing me to address the situation. And I have to give major props to Julie. If that's how she speaks to her partners, I can see that there's just really there's no guessing with Julie. Like, she'll tell you how she truly feels so that you never feel like you're in the dark. And I think that's what makes a really valuable partner.
I really appreciate hearing that. That is like maybe now the new best thing I've ever heard. But I think our relationship earlier, even our relationship in the first couple of years, both of us like skirted around things. And I think
for sure
you have definitely become more direct as well. I see it with you and your partner, but also you and I as partners too. I love that our partners will always know that they have a second partner to deal with.
But see, this partnership is different because we are friends first and foremost, and then we became business partners. And confronting your friends is not a thing that I'm accustomed to. I've never confronted a friend or sat a friend down to talk about something. Certainly I've had those feelings, but never got them out in the open. So I really appreciate that I've progressed to this point.
I think there is something with friends, though, that there's something that feels different than significant others about bringing stuff up. And I actually read that book, Big Friendship, by the co-hosts that do Call Your Girlfriend.
Oh.
And they're definitely in a more of a similar boat than you and I, because they're like business partners and friends. So they went to therapy together. Like they talk about the two of them in therapy together.
That's a great idea.
But society tells you wouldn't do that with friends.
Right.
But I have ended friendships with people before. Like I had a friend, I was in her wedding and we don't talk anymore. And that's kind of sad actually. And like,
that is,
it's like, it's on one side. It's like, sometimes it's inevitable. It's kind of like a breakup. Sometimes people will just grow apart and it is what it is, but we didn't try. We didn't try to make it work. I'm the one that shut down. Like, I'll admit it. Like, I totally shut down with it. And that sucks. Like, looking back on it, that really sucks. And I don't ever want to do that with you or romantic partners or any of my friends again.
I 1,000% agree with that. So other than our podcast, my other favorite podcast is called Unfuck Your Brain with,
yes.
with Cara.
We need to get her on.
Lauren Lowenthal. I can't say her last name, but she had a whole episode about toxic people in your life. And the way she phrased it was this. She said, there are no toxic people in your life. You make them toxic in your mind. Ooh. So if you find that you, someone makes you feel a certain way that's negative or gets you riled up, spend more time with them to work through that as opposed to just labeling them as toxic. It's the easiest thing to do. It's, we hear it on all those like Instagram influencers always like, get rid of toxic people in your life. Mm-hmm. Just cancel them. It's not like that. People can't be canceled. And no. I totally agree with her. People aren't toxic. You make them toxic in your mind.
Or at least prove out your point. Like,
right.
You gotta at least try to have the conversations. And then if they don't want to do it, that's another story. But if you're not trying, like how, I don't know. I was like talking to a friend the other night about this, about like someone that they like care deeply on. And they're like, he never seems to be in a relationship because as soon as it gets difficult, he bolts. And I think a lot of us do that, especially with app culture. It's like, oh, there's someone else around the corner. But and I think Alexandra Solomon said this, you're going to have conflict with everyone. So like, while it might not be the same type of conflict, something inevitably is going to come up. Inevitably.
So I feel like our listeners are getting energized by this conversation and being like, okay, bring on the conflict. What do I do? Now we need the tools and the skill set to have these conversations. And this is what this episode is all about. We've got Sandy Weiner, who is a communication specialist. She also has a podcast. You'll hear all about her on this episode, but she will give you the tools of addressing conflict and working through that, which is phenomenal.
And she's trained in nonviolent communication. And she actually talks about her own personal life, too. I love when experts will go into their own, because she admits, like, she wasn't great at communication in her marriage. And that was a big part of why it ended. And I think sometimes you kind of have to hit rock bottom with certain things to, like, make that conscious change of being like, I need to actually really focus on communication. Like, this is a problem. This is something I didn't learn in school. This is something I didn't have good role models for. Like, I need to be proactive and figure it out.
Right. And we should forgive ourselves. Nobody is born a good communicator. The default is we're all bad communicators. And it is up to us to work our way up to good communicators. So you're just at the default if you don't think you're a good communicator. It's okay.
Exactly.
Just work your way up.
But you got this. You got this whole 60 minutes. There you go. Step one. And then, this is like the week of communication for us. I didn't realize this. This was kind of like a by accident thing that happened. But for anyone that's been with us for a bit, you've heard us mention the sounding board, our community, our premium community, where we have events, but we also give a bonus audio every month. And it's really like the audio, and Yue and I feel so bullish about this, that these are the types of things that really make you dateable. Like, you can fix up your profile all you want. Not saying you shouldn't do it, but at the core of it, it's like the communication piece. Like, that is so important. So we actually have a bonus episode this month that's all about communicating your needs, which is like kind of taking this a step further in that. And there's going to be a discussion group next Thursday. So Thursday, June 10th.
Whoa, already?
Oh my God, I can't believe we're in June.
Oh
yeah, I know.
Goodness.
It's like that isn't right. When I was saying it out loud, I'm like, no, it is. 'Cause we released the episode the first week of the month.
Holy
so
shite.
June 3rd it will be out, and then we do the follow-up a week later while it's fresh. And people have just loved these discussions because they're like, where else can I freaking talk about anxiety? And everyone's like, I get it. And I'm supporting you, and I'm here with you. Like, there aren't really that many places you could do stuff like this.
No. No. Other than therapy.
This is like a form of therapy. Cheaper than therapy.
Way cheaper.
Speaking of therapy, I feel like there was such an overwhelming response to last week's episode with Most Dateable Brian Clark. So giving you a shout out there also. Want to address a really unfortunate thing that Apple is changing some ways that they bring out episodes. So I'm really hoping this doesn't continue, but apparently we heard this actually from Frolic, our podcast network. Some other podcasters reported this also, is that usually Apple Podcasts immediately pushes
out the episode.
But for whatever reason, this week it's been a 24-hour delay. So some of you were like, hey, where's the episode? I just want to be assured that it went out. It should be there now. So if you missed it, hopefully this one will not have that same lag time. But definitely make sure to subscribe, because we've heard that, or at least I saw even on my feed that in the subscribed one it was there, but in the general search on the app it wasn't. So make sure you subscribe, and then if it's not for whatever reason, you can always turn to Spotify. Personally, Spotify I personally use just because I listen to everything else there, but it went out right away there. So hopefully this will get resolved.
Yeah, so this is a PSA to switch out of Apple Podcasts and go to Spotify. No. And this episode is brought to you by Spotify. Just kidding. But it's true.
That would be great if
that would be the best transition. It's true. Sometimes you don't see the episodes right away, but we are very on time with our episodes and when we push them out. So if you don't see it that night, just go on Spotify. Try it. Just Google or whatever. Go on our website. Go to iHeart, any other platform, and you should be able to see it.
I think hopefully this is going to get resolved. Apple did like a major overhaul of its podcast app, which is super exciting. We're definitely still pro Apple, so don't want to feel like we're not. And we know a lot of you listen that way, and keep those reviews coming. That's the second PSA. But we, if it's not there, I think definitely make sure you're subscribed. I think that's step number one.
Yes. And let's get those episodes out there. Julie, do you remember this mug? You've seen this mug.
Queen of fucking everything.
Freaking? Did you just self-censor? She's like queen of ducking everything.
Queen of fucking everything. Like, I feel like that could get interpreted two different ways.
And I remember this because the first time you saw this mug, you were like, I want to take a picture of it for Dateable, for some of our promo stuff. And I was like, Julie, this has another meaning, I feel like. You could be the queen of fucking everything, or you could be the queen of fucking everything.
I do not remember this mug at all. Maybe I'm losing it. I'm like blanking on this whole interaction. But I'm glad that you were able to pull it out for me again.
Whenever I drink out of it, I think of you. I'm like, is it queen of fucking everything or queen of fucking everything? It's both.
Maybe that should be a merch slogan also.
Yeah. Well, talk about a communication mishap.
Exactly.
What do you really mean by that? But it is back toward the sounding board is not too late if you want to get access to our latest audio series all about communicating your needs. Just go to dateablepodcast.com/sounding board.
Yep. And that's all levels have access. Cool.
Equal opportunity.
Equal opportunity. Awesome. Well, we're going to get into it, but quick announcements. I mean, definitely, actually, we were also on Sandy's podcast.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah. So I want to shout that out. We were on Sandy's podcast, The Last First Date Radio, and we were on episode 454. Damn,
wow.
Sandy has a lot of episodes. And it was an insider's look into modern dating with Yue Shu and Julie Krafchick. So,
that's the episode.
Very exciting. Yeah, if you're on YouTube right now, you're seeing it in the flash. If not, go to, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. It's all there. It's been up for a week now, so it's probably an Apple Podcast. So good to go.
There's a 62-hour delay.
Yeah. But definitely check that out. And then I think just other quick announcements. Love in the time of Corona. That's our Facebook group. That's where, we've had just really great discussions. Like every day, I'm just like amazed by the different diverse perspectives and opinions. And then the sounding board is always that's where the real magic happens. I feel like that's what I always say to describe it, but it really is true because people there are like becoming legit friends. And we actually practice a lot of the stuff, I think, with each other, like good communication, vulnerability, like whatever is
the
kind of
J word, the V word, and not the D word.
The C word is another one that could be misconstrued as the communication. I feel like they're all like the clean version and the dirty version. It's basically like your mug is the same thing. But I think it's a great place that you can essentially practice these skills. So it becomes so ingrained in you that when you're out on dates, it's just natural. I think that's the place we want to all get to. And I think, I really think UA, for the two of us, part of the reason why we've grown is because we talk about this stuff so much. And it's become second nature more.
Yes. And we're still on that journey. But
it's always a work in progress.
Always. Yeah. But it's a journey that matters.